On this sacred day, the 30th of August 2025, a divine message unfolds in the presence of heaven's grace and guidance, a message carried forth with urgency and great assurance, a message designed not merely to encourage but to awaken and transform lives in accordance with divine timing, purpose, and eternal destiny, and Archangel Michael himself stands as the herald of this proclamation, reminding us that the urgency of this moment cannot be understated, for heaven is actively bending its will toward us right now, orchestrating events, aligning circumstances, and releasing breakthroughs that have been long delayed. And just as a door that seemed sealed for years can open in a matter of seconds, so too are doors prepared to open in our lives at this very hour. And though the enemy of our souls has labored tirelessly to block this revelation, he has failed, because the message has broken through the spiritual resistance, shining brighter than ever with clarity, hope, and power, and it comes wrapped in the reminder that delay was never denial but rather a strategy of divine preparation, because God in His infinite wisdom often ordains timing as the decisive factor that separates struggle from triumph, waiting from fulfillment, and what may have seemed like an endless delay was in reality a setup, positioning us to receive blessings in their most perfect form and their most transformative season. And therefore every second and every day becomes a golden key unlocking doors of divine destiny and breakthrough, and faith and attention are demanded of us in this moment, because skipping lines, shortcuts, and inattention risk missing the miracles that are flowing through the river of spiritual currents. And the role of staying connected to this divine flow cannot be overstated, because subscribing to God's timing, His messages, and His pathways is not merely an act of choice but an act of faith, one that keeps us aligned with the channel through which miracles flow and doors open. And as Archangel Michael testifies, staying rooted in connection is itself readiness to receive the outpouring that is on the way. And in this sacred announcement we are reminded that we are not accidental wanderers upon the earth but individuals chosen and anointed for a mission, that our progress, trials, and silent struggles were never wasted but marked and noted by heaven. For personal worth and divine selection are unshakable truths embedded within our being, ensuring that no storm, no rejection, and no delay can strip away the calling and mission with which we were anointed. And as surely as what was lost will be restored, so too will what was stolen be returned, because the nature of divine reversal is written into this hour, declaring that doors long shut will open, chains will fall, and blessings will flood into our lives, not as mere consolation but as evidence of God's justice and goodness. And this message is reinforced by the profound reality of spiritual presence, where Archangel Michael's sword symbolizes the power cutting through obstacles, sweeping away blockages, and ushering in breakthrough, while angels themselves stand as active participants in this spiritual battle, pressing us into the reception of what has been ordained. And the call then is for perseverance and full reception, not a rushed glance at a divine promise but an unhurried, faithful dwelling in its words, receiving not partially but fully, not skeptically but expectantly, absorbing with readiness every seed of miracle that heaven is sowing into this present moment. And the promise that accompanies this perseverance is accelerated transformation, for heaven declares that in just 5 minutes of divine intervention, years of delay, sorrow, and hopelessness can be overturned, because God's interventions defy natural laws, compressing time, collapsing obstacles, and making the impossible inevitable. And yet doubt will always rise to resist such proclamations, for Doubt is the thief, the silent enemy that whispers futility, and it must be resisted with unwavering tenacity, because faith demonstrated through focus, consistency, and trust is the currency of miracle release. And in this day heaven proclaims the breaking of silence, the lifting of obscurity, and the arrival of joy, because the breakthrough season is no longer a hidden promise but an officially begun reality. As night gives way to morning, silence to song, and morning to rejoicing, and at this threshold comes the invitation to divine partnership, for God is not calling us to be passive recipients but active co-laborers in the unfolding of destiny, and by remaining faithful and engaged in our purpose we participate in the heavenly process that ensures that what is given to us becomes not only sustenance but also power and authority transferred for a lifetime. And therefore the assurance of God's presence and preparation anchors this message, because heaven is not pressing us out of pressure but preparing us out of love, not rushing us toward outcomes but equipping us to steward blessings, and every closed door of the past was in fact a redirection toward the opening of the right blessing for us. And thus the spiritual significance of this exact moment cannot be dismissed as coincidence, for no one here is receiving this word by accident, and heaven has fought fiercely to ensure that this word reaches us, even to the point of battling spiritual resistance, and in recognizing this, we see that the struggles we have endured were never meaningless, because opposition and suffering were signs that we were carrying great destiny, and resistance itself was proof that we were anointed, chosen, and set apart. And now in the unfolding of hidden mysteries and promises, heaven declares that further revelations are on their way, as though layers of a sealed scroll are being opened one by one, and each unfolding reveals that what has been hidden will be manifested. What has been delayed will be released, and what has been broken will be restored. And with this comes the call to live differently after receiving this sacred word, not returning to old patterns of fear and doubt, but stepping boldly into a new posture where our spirit, will, and perspective align with destiny. For this message is not an inspirational note to be remembered vaguely but a turning point in which everything changes forever, and the eternal impact of our commitment to receive it cannot be underestimated, for staying connected ensures blessings continue to flow daily, and as our faithfulness deepens, the floodgates of heaven remain open, pouring forth mercy, provision, healing, and direction, until our lives themselves become living testimonies of divine breakthrough. And on this 30th of August 2025, heaven announces clearly and without hesitation that this is the appointed time. This is the moment of transformation, and this is the hour where promises long delayed become present realities, and all that is asked of us is attention, faith, and readiness. For as Archangel Michael wields the sword of breakthrough, so too must we wield the shield of faith, knowing that what has begun this day shall not only bless us in the moment but carry eternal significance in heaven's record of destiny fulfilled. As we move deeper into this divine message for the 30th of August 2025, the Spirit continues to emphasize that the urgency of this moment is not simply about receiving blessings but about aligning ourselves fully with the destiny that has been spoken over our lives since before the foundations of the earth were laid, and this urgency carries with it the weight of heaven's expectation that we will not delay, that we will not waver, and that we will not allow distraction or discouragement to pull us away from the pathway of fulfillment, for heaven is bending toward us in this hour, pressing into our circumstances, bending natural laws, and accelerating divine purposes that have been hindered for too long, and Archangel Michael stands once again at the forefront, declaring victory over the spiritual battles that have tried to silence this word, battles that attempted to smother hope, to instill doubt, and to convince us that the delay was permanent, when in truth every resistance was only evidence that the breakthrough was imminent. And as he swings his sword in the spiritual realm, cutting down lies, dismantling barriers, and striking fear into the heart of the adversary, we are reminded that no opposition is greater than God's ordained promise, and no enemy can cancel the destiny that heaven has sealed. And so the divine timing of this moment reveals itself as a grand orchestration, because though it appeared that delay was holding us back, in reality it was the hand of God ensuring that we were not underprepared for the magnitude of blessing He intended, because premature blessings can become burdens if they arrive before we are ready to carry them, and thus what seemed like endless waiting was divine alignment, perfect preparation, and the unseen construction of pathways that now stand ready for us to walk. And so each day that felt wasted was in fact a building block of divine readiness. And now in this hour we are urged to give our full attention, because distraction and spiritual sleep are among the greatest thieves of breakthrough, and skipping the small steps, ignoring the quiet whispers of God, or treating lightly the sacred flow of this message risks missing the very miracles designed for us. And so subscribing to this divine current, staying attentive, and remaining rooted is not optional but essential, because connection ensures continuity, and continuity ensures completion. And thus, as Archangel Michael affirms, every person who hears this message is not random or accidental but chosen and appointed, set apart for purposes that are greater than personal ambition, greater than earthly recognition, and greater than temporal gain, because the hand of heaven marks each life with significance, and every struggle, every delay, every hidden tear has been recorded and woven into the tapestry of destiny. And this truth resounds with the reminder that what was stolen shall be restored, that the years eaten by locusts shall be returned manifold, and that every door once closed shall now swing open, not through human effort alone but through divine reversal. For the God who rules over time and eternity is speaking restoration over His people, and this restoration will not come as a trickle but as a flood, cascading in ways that astonish both recipient and observer, testifying that God Himself has moved. And in this movement the reality of spiritual presence is made manifest, as angels stand among us, not distant but present, participants in this breakthrough, carriers of blessing, messengers of strength, and warriors of light. And so the call that echoes now is to perseverance and full reception, because the measure of what is given depends greatly on the measure of what we are willing to receive. And so we are commanded not to skim, not to rush, not to treat casually the holy words of this moment, but to lean into them, dwell in them, and allow them to saturate our souls until faith rises and expectation overflows. Because the promise bound to this perseverance is transformation, and not transformation at the pace of human progress but accelerated transformation, the kind that in one moment turns despair into joy, in one night transforms lack into abundance, in 1 hour lifts chains that have bound for years, and as heaven reminds us, just 5 minutes of divine intervention can accomplish more than decades of human effort, because when God's hand moves, natural processes are suspended, impossibilities are overturned, and time itself bends to His will. And though doubt lurks, whispering futility, discouragement, and fear, we are commanded to resist it, because doubt is not passive but an enemy, a thief that comes to silence faith. And so faith must rise not as an occasional act but as a lifestyle, demonstrated through consistency, through focus, through unwavering trust that God's word is true. And this faith becomes the currency by which we transact in the heavenly economy, pulling into our lives the promises spoken. And in this very moment, silence is broken, because the season of waiting has shifted into the season of manifestation, and joy, long delayed, begins to flow as evidence, because the official announcement from heaven is that breakthrough has arrived, and joy accompanies it, not fleeting joy but enduring joy that cannot be shaken. And within this moment lies an invitation, not merely to receive blessings but to enter into divine partnership, to walk with God in the unfolding of destiny, to not stand idle at the edge of breakthrough but to step into active collaboration with heaven's purposes, carrying responsibility, authority, and stewardship with faithfulness, because this message is not mere encouragement but a transfer of power, and the assurance that accompanies it is that God has already gone before us, preparing paths, preparing hearts, preparing opportunities, not pushing us with pressure but pulling us with love, and every detour, every closed door, every moment of frustration was in reality divine redirection toward the exact blessing prepared for us. And so the significance of this moment intensifies, for heaven affirms that this is not an accident, not a coincidence, but a divinely orchestrated encounter. And the fact that this message has reached us is proof that heaven has fought fiercely to protect it, preserving it through the fire of opposition, and reminding us that our struggles were never without meaning, for the depth of our suffering mirrored the height of our destiny, and the fierceness of resistance testified to the greatness of the promise we carried. And now, as hidden mysteries begin to unfold, layers of divine revelation peel back, showing us promises that were once distant but now imminent, hidden treasures that were once obscure but now revealed, and the call is clear: to live differently, to no longer act, think, or walk as though we are bound by limitation, but to rise in identity, to walk in authority, to embrace destiny as reality, and to allow this message to mark the pivot point where life turns forever, and the eternal impact of our decision to receive this word becomes the most significant factor of all, because heaven's floodgates open to the faithful, and those who remain connected continue to experience ongoing blessing, not as a one-time event but as a continual flow, until their lives themselves radiate testimony, their words echo victory, and their presence becomes a carrier of light. And so, as Archangel Michael declares over this day, the 30th of August 2025, the appointed time has truly come, the gates of heaven stand open, and the call is simple yet profound: to pay attention, to hold faith, to stay connected, and to be ready to walk into the fulfillment that has already begun. And so, as this sacred declaration continues on the 30th of August 2025, the heavens are still pressing their message with even greater clarity, reminding us once again that breakthrough is not only an external event but an internal awakening, a shift of heart, spirit, and mind that aligns us with divine reality. And Archangel Michael's voice continues to resonate with authority, commanding us to see ourselves not as victims of circumstance but as participants in a heavenly narrative that is unfolding with precision and urgency. And this narrative insists that what we are stepping into is not the product of random chance but the result of divine orchestration that began long before our understanding. For every detail of our journey, every obstacle we faced, every disappointment endured, every tear shed, was woven into the larger design that God purposed, ensuring that when this appointed moment arrived, we would be not only ready but also transformed by the very process that seemed to delay us. And here lies the paradox of divine timing, that what looks like delay is preparation, and what feels like loss is often positioning, and what seems like silence is often heaven working in deeper, unseen dimensions. And so Archangel Michael speaks with certainty that the breakthroughs of this hour are irreversible, unstoppable, and undeniable, because heaven itself has decreed them, and no opposition can reverse what God has ordained. And so the command is to stand firm in faith, to resist the voice of doubt and the lure of discouragement, because those who remain steadfast shall not only see breakthrough but shall embody it, becoming living vessels through which others can encounter hope, encouragement, and divine presence. And as this season of accelerated transformation intensifies, we are told again that heaven's movement is not bound by time as we know it. 4 years of barrenness can be overturned in mere moments, and lifetimes of sorrow can be reversed by a single act of divine intervention. And this is not merely theory but reality, because God's hand moves beyond natural law, turning impossibility into testimony. And so the promise that radiates today is that the cycles of delay, despair, and defeat have been broken, and we are invited to step into cycles of growth, abundance, joy, and fulfillment. And yet this invitation is not passive but active, because divine partnership requires our faithfulness, our attention, and our willingness to stay rooted. For heaven will never impose breakthrough on a heart that refuses to receive it, and so this moment becomes a testing ground of faith, asking us whether we will believe the unseen more than the visible, whether we will trust the eternal more than the temporary, and whether we will hold fast to the promises spoken even when opposition arises. Because make no mistake, opposition will not disappear entirely but will transform from hindrance into confirmation, and each struggle we encounter will serve as proof that we are on the correct path, because the enemy does not fight what he does not fear, and resistance is always aimed at what carries destiny. And so when the struggle intensifies, we are to recognize it as validation, evidence that we are chosen, marked, and moving in the will of God. And thus the call today is to embrace suffering not as a curse but as an indicator of purpose, because through it resilience is born, character is forged, and faith is strengthened, and all of it becomes preparation for the weight of glory that breakthrough carries, because to whom much is given, much is required, and heaven does not release great blessing into unprepared vessels. And so this moment of release is proof that the preparation has been completed, that the alignment is now perfect, and that the readiness is established. And from this point onward, what was hidden will begin to be revealed, layer upon layer, mystery upon mystery, promise upon promise, as though heaven itself were unfolding a scroll before our eyes, and every layer will reveal greater depth of blessing, greater clarity of calling, and greater assurance of destiny. And therefore the command is clear: live differently, act differently, think differently, because once breakthrough is received, the old patterns cannot remain, and to continue in them would dishonor the gift of heaven. And so transformation is required not just in circumstance but in mindset, in behavior, in vision, because breakthrough is not simply for survival but for expansion, not just for relief but for influence, not just for personal comfort but for kingdom purpose. And so as we accept this call to live differently, we begin to carry the weight of testimony, for our lives become evidence of divine faithfulness, our words become vessels of encouragement, and our journeys become roadmaps for those who come after us. And this ripple of transformation ensures that the eternal impact of our commitment is far greater than we imagine, because what we decide in this moment does not end with us but flows into generations, creating legacies of faith, opening pathways of blessing, and establishing lineages of hope. And so Archangel Michael proclaims with unwavering clarity that on this very day, the 30th of August 2025, the eternal records of heaven are being inscribed with the names of those who choose to receive, those who choose to remain faithful, and those who choose to align with divine purpose, and their decision will not only shape their present but also echo through eternity, testifying to angels, to creation, and to the throne of God that faith triumphed over fear, that perseverance prevailed over doubt, and that destiny was embraced in its fullness. And so the urgency of the moment presses still heavier, reminding us that delay is no longer an option, that hesitation is no longer permissible, that distraction is no longer tolerable, because the time is now, the season is here, the hour is appointed. And heaven's floodgates are open, pouring out mercy, healing, provision, and guidance, and all that is required is our faith-filled participation, our attentive reception, and our steadfast perseverance. And if we will do this, then nothing can stop what God has decreed, and no power can reverse what heaven has released, and our lives will become undeniable testimonies of divine breakthrough, carried forward into eternity with everlasting significance. And now, as this divine message for the 30th of August 2025 draws toward its conclusion, the Spirit continues to pour forth revelation, urging us to not merely listen but to integrate, to embody, and to live out what has been spoken. For it is one thing to hear the promise of breakthrough and another to walk in it daily, carrying its power not as a fleeting experience but as a lasting identity. And Archangel Michael, the messenger of this moment, stands not merely as a symbolic figure but as an active participant in our journey, wielding his sword of light to clear pathways that we cannot see, removing opposition that we cannot fight alone, and strengthening us with courage to endure and to overcome. And in his voice resonates the command to live with unwavering confidence in God's word, because heaven has not spoken lightly, nor has this message arrived by chance, but it has come with deliberate timing, with purposeful precision, and with eternal intention, and therefore we must regard it with the utmost reverence, treating it not as a casual encouragement but as a decree from the throne of God itself. And in doing so we align ourselves with the highest reality, positioning our lives to be vessels of light in a world that is increasingly shadowed by doubt, fear, and confusion. For it is in times of great uncertainty that divine messages shine brightest. And it is in seasons of chaos that the urgency of heaven carries its greatest weight. And so we are summoned to stand tall, to rise in faith, to resist discouragement, and to embrace joy, because our breakthrough is not only about personal restoration but about becoming a beacon of testimony, a living proclamation that God is faithful, that He is still moving, and that His promises are unstoppable. And in this lies the eternal impact of our commitment, because as we choose faith over fear and perseverance over doubt, we not only secure our own blessings but also unlock streams of influence that flow outward into families, communities, nations, and generations, carrying with them the fragrance of divine presence and the evidence of eternal truth. And so our decision today becomes a generational pivot, altering the course of those who follow, planting seeds that will grow into trees of blessing long after we are gone. And this is why heaven insists so urgently that we give full attention, that we remain faithfully connected, and that we refuse to waver, because the scope of what is at stake extends far beyond ourselves. And now, as this message crescendos, the Spirit declares that the unfolding of hidden mysteries and promises is only beginning. For what has been revealed today is not the end but the beginning of greater revelations to come, and each step we take in faith will peel back another layer, each act of obedience will reveal another treasure, and each demonstration of trust will open another door, until we are walking in a fullness of destiny that exceeds imagination. And this assurance comes with the gentle reminder that God does not push us in haste but prepares us in love, that every season has had purpose, and that every delay was infused with hidden preparation. And so, as the curtain of breakthrough lifts, our hearts must be ready to walk not only in blessing but in transformation. For the call of heaven is not simply to receive abundance but to embody responsibility, to live as carriers of light and as stewards of destiny, shaping the world not for our own glory but for the glory of the one who called us. And thus the exhortation is clear. After receiving this word, live differently, see differently, and act differently, for you are no longer bound by the limits that once defined you, you are no longer trapped by the chains that once restrained you, you are no longer silenced by the lies that once discouraged you, for you have been loosed, you have been lifted, and you have been launched into a season of destiny that cannot be reversed, and from this day forward your life shall testify of the eternal faithfulness of God, and the impact of your choices will echo not only in time but in eternity. And so let this day be written in your memory as the turning point, the sacred hour when heaven bent low and released a word that shifted everything, the holy moment when delay was broken, when joy was birthed, and when destiny began to unfold with unstoppable force. And as Archangel Michael seals this message, the final exhortation rises. Do not shrink back. Do not hesitate. Do not question the worth of your calling, for you are chosen, you are appointed, and you are anointed, and the gates of heaven are open before you, waiting for you to step through in faith. And as you do, miracles will follow, blessings will overflow, and your life will shine as a light in a world that desperately needs hope. And so let this word be not just heard but lived, not just remembered but embodied, not just received but released, until every sphere you touch is transformed by the same breakthrough that has touched you. And as this sacred transmission concludes, let it be known that this is not the end of revelation but the beginning of a journey in which heaven will continue to speak, to guide, and to pour out mysteries that will keep unfolding in your life. And for those who desire to remain connected, to stay rooted in these divine streams, and to continue walking in the flow of messages that build faith, awaken destiny, and usher breakthrough, there is a way to ensure that you never miss what heaven continues to pour, and that is to remain connected not only in spirit but in practice, joining in with spaces where these words are shared and carried further. And so, with wisdom and with heartfelt invitation, I encourage you to subscribe to Archangel Inspire, a channel dedicated to carrying forward these messages of light, of faith, and of breakthrough, because just as staying connected in the spiritual ensures readiness for miracles, staying connected in community ensures that the flame of faith continues to burn bright. And by subscribing, you are not simply following a channel but choosing to keep yourself aligned with a stream of inspiration that will strengthen your faith, sharpen your vision, and prepare you to walk boldly into every blessing ordained for your life. And so as this word closes, let the last act of faith be to remain connected, both to heaven and to the community that carries its voice. For in doing so you ensure that your journey of breakthrough does not end here but continues, growing, expanding, and transforming until the fullness of your destiny is revealed in the perfect timing of God.